Well, at this point, I feel like we're floating away, but more rain is on the way. Clouds on the increase tonight. Rain arise before sunrise on our Wednesday. It'll make for a soggy morning commute. The rain can be steady or even heavy at times through lunchtime, and it'll stay cool for our Wednesday with the rain, as high temperatures only top out around 60. We'll be dry for a little bit of the afternoon, but another batch of rain for Wednesday night. Then we'll dry it out. We're warm again, around 70 for Thursday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Folks, you know it's been cold, and we at Randy Marion Stores in Statesville, we want to make sure your car does not leave you stranded on these cold mornings. Come let us check your vehicle out with a complimentary service check. Randy Marion Chevrolet of Statesville, Randy Marion Ford Lincoln, we'll check it out to make sure that car will start on these cold mornings and get you to where you need to be. Come see us today. Make sure you're tip-top ready to go. 2024 has started off cold. Let's make sure you are ready to go.
King of Price, RandyMarionStatesville.com.
Local leaders, top stories, the news that matters most to you. The News Drive at 5 with host Patrick Reynolds starts now.
Welcome to the News Drive at 5 for this Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024. Patrick Reynolds here with you on WSIC News Talk Radio, 5:06 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us this afternoon. You just heard Know the Scene with Justin Dion from the Kane Center for the Arts, East Catawba Avenue in Cornelius. Always a good show on Tuesdays, 4 p.m., right before the News Drive at 5. You can hear all things Kane Center for the Arts and what is going on in the community down there in the center of Cornelius. The director of the Kane Center for the Arts, Justin Dion, hosts Know the Scene every Tuesday here, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464. Get you on the air with us here in studio with the News Drive at 5. And I think we've got an early caller right away. Got someone on the line already. Want to get them right on the air. Could this be Yolanda from iCats? Possibly, maybe.
Yes, it is, Patrick. Hi, good afternoon. How are you today?
We're doing very well up here. How are you doing, Yolanda?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a beautiful day today.
Great day for driving safely and smoothly, I hope.
Yes, we have good report today. We have a good report. We do have a little bit of congestion over by the lake, the bridges, of course, but we have a major slowdown between exits 21 and 19. Slow down, heavy congestion. That would be southbound as well. I-77 southbound. I-77 northbound looks good. We do have a lot of volume, but it is moving. And there are no other accidents or incidents to report at this time.
That is wonderful. No incidents or accidents. That is fantastic. We hope that good news continues. A little bit of slowdown over the causeways over the lake. We're good with that as long as everybody keeps their own paint on their own cars. Yolanda, thank you so much for the update. Our audience appreciate you.
You're welcome so much, Patrick. Have a great evening. Everybody be safe out there.
You as well. Thank you so much. Yolanda from iCats checking in with us. 77 southbound has some congestion between exits 21 and 19, and northbound looking pretty good. Volume is picking up, obviously, out of uptown Charlotte, heading up towards the lake. 5:09 p.m., so that's normal for the volume to be increasing right now. And, of course, over the causeways, going over Lake Norman. So please pay attention, get home safe to your families. Want to keep everybody on point, in their lane, traveling safely. But big thanks to Yolanda and iCats for that good report. In other news, our top 5 at 5 stories here on the News Drive at 5 that we are tracking for you. Well, today is Super Tuesday. We'll give you the latest. A missing Statesville child has been located. The Iredell Statesville schools face budget challenges with depletion of emergency funds. Cornelius had their town board meeting last night, and a new Statesville fire station is nearing completion. All that and much more tonight on the News Drive at 5. 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464. Get you on the air right here with us at WSIC News Talk. Our top story tonight, today is Super Tuesday, where Republicans and Democrats have nomination in 15 contests. Well, many contests across 15 states, including right here in North Carolina. The polls close at 7:30 p.m. tonight, so you have about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Still have time to vote. Lots of time to vote tonight, so please go out there and exercise your right. We encourage all of you to do that. 7:30 p.m., the polls will close tonight here in North Carolina. Now, voters across the state will decide a full slate of primaries today, including contested races for governor, U.S. House, and other offices, not to mention the Democratic and Republican presidential nominations. President Joe Biden is the only candidate listed on the Democratic Party ballot, although voters have the option of selecting no preference in either contest. U.S. Representative Dean Phillips of Minnesota and self-help author Marianne Williamson had attempted to get on the ballot, but the State Board of Elections decided in January to finalize the candidate lists provided to them by the state parties. Former President Donald Trump and former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley are the only active candidates on the Republican ballot. A voter had attempted to block Trump from appearing on the ballot, saying he was disqualified for his role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, but the Elections Board dismissed the challenge in December. Also on Tuesday's ballot are contested primaries to replace term-limited Democratic Governor Roy Cooper. State Attorney General Josh Stein, former State Supreme Court Justice Mike Morgan, and 3 other candidates will compete on the Democratic ballot. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robertson, State Treasurer Dale Folwell, and Attorney Bill Graham will compete for the Republican nomination. Stein has Cooper's backing, while Robinson won Trump's endorsement. Primaries are also being held for other statewide offices, such as Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, and Treasurer, as well as for State Senate, State House, U.S. House, including 5 districts where the incumbent is not seeking another term. Non-presidential races where no candidate receives a single vote over 30% of the total vote share may go to a May 14th runoff if the second-place finisher requests it. The Associated Press will provide coverage for the Democratic and Republican presidential primaries as well as key state races. Biden is the only Democratic presidential candidate on the ballot, but he does face a no-preference ballot option. The Republican ballot options include Trump, Haley, no preference, and the former Republican candidates who used to be in the race. Among the notable state races are the Democratic and Republican primaries for governor, lieutenant governor, and treasurer, the Republican primary for Secretary of State, the Democratic primary for Attorney General, as well as various primaries for U.S. House, State Senate, and State House. Registered party members may only vote in their own party's primary. Unaffiliated voters may vote in either primary. There are 116 pledged Democratic delegates at stake in North Carolina, and they're awarded according to the national party's standard rules. 25 at-large delegates are allocated in proportion to the statewide vote, as are 15 PLEO delegates, or party leaders and elected officials. The state's 14 congressional districts have a combined 76 delegates at stake, which are allocated in proportion to the vote results in each district. Candidates must receive at least 15% of the statewide vote to qualify for any statewide delegates, and 15% of the vote in a congressional district to qualify for delegates in that district. Republicans have 74 delegates at stake, 32 of which are statewide delegates awarded proportionally to candidates who receive more than 20% of the statewide vote. Each of the 14 congressional districts awards 3 delegates. We've got more about Super Tuesday and the other headlines around the local community here on the News Drive at 5. WSIC News Talk rolls on. Patrick Reynolds taking you home. We'll be right back.
Keep it here. We'll be back with more of the News Drive at 5 with Patrick straight ahead on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Well, at this point, I feel like we're floating away, but more rain is on the way. Clouds on the increase tonight. Rain arrives before sunrise.
Cool. Hello, caller. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Hi, who am I talking to?
Richard Coleman.
Hey, Richard Patrick. How are you?
Better than I deserve. Just out here working the polls. I figured I'd give you guys a call and see what was going on.
Well, that sounds good. We are in a commercial break right now. Do you want to hang on, and we'll come back to you after the commercial's over here in a couple minutes and get you back on here?
Absolutely, sure.
Sure, man. Sit tight. We'll be right with you. How long we got here, Joe? 2.5 minutes. About 2.5 minutes, man. We'll be right with you.
Sounds good. I'll be here.
Great, man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
All right.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool.
And click on events to submit your event today.
This is Fred Lowry at Lowry Drug. We now have our own brand of full-spectrum hemp extract, also known as CBD oil. I personally manage this product as it was grown on my farm here in Iredell County. It was then processed and bottled here in Statesville. This is a true herbal extract with all the medicinal components intact. Our product you can trust to be authentic. And since there is no wholesaler, it's at a price you can afford. Try it at Lowry Drug on Hartness Road in Statesville.
It's the News Drive at 5 with Patrick Reynolds on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC. Local starts here.
Welcome back to the News Drive at 5 here on WSIC News Talk Radio. I am Patrick Reynolds with you, 5:18 p.m. on this Tuesday, Super Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024. 844 Studio 4, 844-788-3464. Get you live on air in studio with us, and we have someone on the hold that took advantage of that opportunity, dialed in, and we welcome him to the show. Candidate for Iredell County Commissioner Richard Coleman joins WSIC News. How are you tonight, Richard?
Better than I deserve, Pat. How are you today?
We're doing great. The election today have given us a whole lot to talk about, and with an unplanned call here, we're thrilled to hear your voice. How has the day been for you as a candidate elbows deep in today's election?
It's been extremely busy, but it's not just been today. We've been at it for 2.5 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
Early voting started roughly 17, 18 days ago. We've been working the polls every day, trying to get our name out there, trying to get in front of people, the voters. The turnout's been really good, especially today. I mean, we're over at the CAT Center today, been over here all day. It's been a steady flow of traffic of voters, which is always great to see. And, I think we've got over 1,000 votes just cast today right here at the CAT Center in Troutman.
Well, Richard Coleman, a guest here on the News Drive at 5 in studio just a few weeks ago. Have you been in contact with voters today and hearing some of their questions and messages that they may have for you as a candidate?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the two biggest things in Iredell County, obviously, are the property taxes and the growth that we've experienced over the last couple of years. And we're doing everything that we can to earn ourselves a position to serve the citizens of Iredell County, so that we can get in there and hopefully have the opportunity to cut spending and lower some taxes here in Iredell, and do what we can from the county's perspective to manage some of this growth, so we have the opportunity for our infrastructure to catch up with the growth that we've experienced over the last 3 years.
We've got about 2 hours and 10 minutes left before the polls close here in North Carolina. Is there any way for you, just as a candidate, to see how any voting results are going now? Are you just kind of in the dark like the rest of us? You're waiting till post 7:30 to see what we got and how things turned out today?
I think, from the local levels, you just have to kind of sit and wait. You'll get they'll release the early voting results from the last 2.5 weeks at around 7:30, 7:45, and then usually the rest of the precincts report from today's voting, somewhere between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, there's no way to gauge or measure where you're at. Unfortunately, congressional races, the federal races, they'll do polls all the time. But at the local level, it's not really worth trying to do those because they can't. Typically, most of the time, they're not very accurate. So you just you sit, wait, and pray.
Yeah. So how have you felt today? Like, what's your gut telling you how today is going?
I'm fairly confident. Like I said, this isn't my first time running. I ran in the last cycle. We came really close in the last cycle. I think we've done a good job of gaining even more support between the last election and this election. So, I'm very positive especially with the response I've been getting at the polls over the last couple of weeks, and what we've experienced today has been very positive. So, like I said, at this point we continue to work for that next 2.5 hours or so, and like I said, we just sit, wait, and pray.
Well, we've got a little bit more than 2 hours left before the polls close here in North Carolina. Our audience members, they're in the car, they're on their way home, they're listening to WSIC. They have not voted yet. What do you say to those people?
I say get to the polls because you still got 2 hours to vote for Coleman for commissioner.
And I'll ask you a question again, the same one I asked you here in studio. I asked you a lot in studio, but the same one I ask every candidate. I'll give you another chance to answer. Why should anyone vote for you? Why does Richard Coleman deserve their vote?
Well, the same thing I've told everybody, outside of an incumbent. So if you're not happy with who's currently in there, outside of an incumbent, I've attended every meeting for the last 4 years, every budget workshop that determines, the spending plan for the following year for the county commissioners. I serve on the Board of Health. I serve on the Board of Parks and Recs. I've been very involved with community groups and organizations to know what, the people of Iredell County's concerns are. And I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one with the least amount of learner's curve possible.
Well, the polls are still open for a few more hours. I'll give you one last chance here as well to address our audience with any other messages. Kind of like I'll quote from Bill O'Reilly. I'll give you the last word here. Anything else that you'd like to share with our audience tonight as the polls get ready to close?
I'll just tell everybody that I'm that guy that's, I've been a Dave Ramsey guy for well over a decade, and I'm that guy that would prefer to tell our money and our tax dollars where to go instead of wondering at the end of the day where they went.
Good words. Richard Coleman, I thank you so much for the call. I thank you time for the studio here a few weeks ago, and I certainly appreciate your message and talking to the WSIC audience. Thank you so much, sir. I wish you best of luck the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a blessed day.
All right. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it very much. Richard Coleman, everybody, candidate for Iredell County Commissioner, one of 7 Republicans running tonight for the primary, where there are 3 seats that will go for the November election. So 7 will advance to 3 on the Republican side tonight. There were only 2 on the Democratic side, so there is no primary for the Democrats for the Iredell County Commissioner tonight. But Richard Coleman, one of the 7 Republicans running for the Iredell County Commissioner. We just have, by the clock on the wall, about 2 hours and 6 minutes left of open poll time here in North Carolina. Richard said it. I'll say it as well. I said it earlier. Please get out and vote today. that's the best message we can share with everyone in the audience. 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464 gets you on the air with us. We'd love to hear from you. If you're a candidate out there, wants to talk, News Drive at 5 is on air for about another 35 minutes. Please feel free to call in. Any voters out there want to express their thoughts? If you have voted yet, you want to talk about the election. If you have not voted yet, would like to call in, see what you're thinking, we welcome your ideas. 844-STUDIO-4 here on WSIC. Back to the Super Tuesday story today. In a national level, getting back to former President Donald Trump, who won the 2016 North Carolina primary against a more competitive field than he faces this year. In that election, Trump edged out U.S. Senator Ted Cruz by about 3 percentage points. Cruz also managed to take the state by winning the second and third most populous cities of Raleigh and Greensboro and the surrounding areas, as well as a handful of counties in western North Carolina. So it was a close loss for Senator Cruz. Although past primary results show that Nikki Haley appeals to a much different type of Republican voter than Cruz does, her likeliest path to victory would resemble Cruz's performance. To pull off an upset, she would need to rack up big wins in Raleigh and Greensboro and improve on Cruz's performance by also winning in Charlotte, which is the most populous city in the state. In other news tonight, out of Statesville, a Winston-Salem man was arrested after throwing 5 pounds of marijuana out of his car before being stopped by police. Over the weekend this past Saturday, an officer attempted a traffic stop on a white GMC for a stop sign violation at the intersection of Lorraine Court and Dobson Avenue. Before stopping, the driver of the GMC threw a bag that contained 5 pounds of marijuana into the road. Courtney Pfeiffer Jr. was taken into custody. He was also found with over $3,800 of cash on him. Pfeiffer was booked under a $30,000 secured bond for an outstanding warrant of felony probation violation. He was denied bond for the drug charges consisting of felony possession of marijuana, possession with intent to sell or deliver marijuana, felony maintaining a vehicle. The Iredell County Sheriff's Office personnel found a missing child in northwestern Iredell County this afternoon. The Iredell County Sheriff's Office credited drone pilot Sergeant Irwin and bloodhound handler Sergeant Hodges and his partner Sadie for finding 5-year-old Vivian Stout. The work of the Iredell County Sheriff's Office personnel brought a quick resolution and averted a potentially tragic situation. Personnel reported to the area of Joyner Road in northeastern Iredell County this afternoon. The 3-foot-tall child was last seen about 1:30 p.m. The plea for the public's assistant went out a little about 2:15 p.m., and the Iredell County Sheriff's Office reported that the child had been located about 2:55 p.m. The Iredell-Statesville School Board of Education members got a first look at the district's budget priorities for the 2024-2025 school year just last night. During the Committee of the Whole meeting, Chief Finance Officer Adam Steele presented a proposed $62.1 million local current expense budget for the upcoming fiscal year. The draft budget represents a 14.25% increase over the previous budget of $54 million. Steele outlined some of the revenue challenges facing the district, including contending with the loss of federal elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. We will be losing those funds that have been available since 2020. In 23 and 23, we had $10.3 million remaining that we are using before the September 2024 deadline. We anticipate having the money spent in June or July, he said. Steele mentioned that 21.5 teaching positions and 21 nurses that were being paid out by those funds will now be returned to the local budget. The cost to retain those positions next year is around $3.1 million. News Drive at 5 continues on. We've got more of your local headlines. I'm Patrick Reynolds here in WSIC. We'll be right back.
More of the News Drive at 5. Drive at 5. After we pay the bills. On 1059 100.7 WSIC.
Floating away, but more rain is on the way. Clouds on the increase tonight. Rain arise before sunrise on our Wednesday. It'll make for a soggy morning commute. The rain can be steady or even heavy at times through lunchtime, and it'll stay cool for our Wednesday with the rain, as high temperatures only top out around 60. We'll be dry for a little bit of the afternoon, but another batch of rain for Wednesday night. Then we'll dry it out. We're warm again around 70 for Thursday. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hello, everyone. This is Joshua Doby, president of North Main Financial Group. At North Main Financial Group, we move to where you need us. Investment management, insurance planning, and estate strategies. No two people are the same, so we customize our planning based upon your needs. Reach out to us at northmainfinancial.com. That's northmainfinancial.com.
If you're looking for the most epic place on earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
And now another no-brainer money-saving tip from Progressive.
It looks like your luggage is over 50 pounds. Is there anything you can take out?
Oh yeah, let me just toss all these $20 bills.
Great. Let me grab you a trash can.
Stop. Instead of throwing money away, move some clothes into a carry-on. And here's a better tip from Progressive on how not to waste money. Don't pay too much for car insurance. Drivers who switch and save could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
6701 Carmel Road, Suite 110, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28226. Joseph Cordell, licensed in Missouri and Illinois only. CordellCordell.com.
President Biden recently released a massive $6 trillion budget, the largest budget in U.S. history. And guess who pays the bill? That's right, you, the American taxpayer. American citizens and business owners will be paying more taxes. That's a fact. And if you owe back taxes, they will be coming after you to collect payments. In fact, President Biden also hired thousands more IRS agents to go after you. If you got a letter from the IRS and you know you owe back taxes or you haven't filed in years, don't put your head in the sand. Call us today. We've saved our customers millions of tax dollars. One quick, free phone call will show you how we can reduce your past tax bill and save you thousands. Guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Call now.
800-218-6440. 800-218-6440. 800.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Investors did some serious second-guessing about the records they posted last week, with tech stocks leading those gains. Today, tech stocks led losses of 1 to 1 2/3%. The Dow fell 405 points. The Nasdaq 268. The S&P 52. Investors didn't like word from Counterpoint Research that iPhone sales in China fell 24% during the first 6 weeks of the year. That on top of regulators raising eyebrows at Apple's App Store. Amazon is apparently a little worried, too, about investigations of fees it has charged customers who switched to a rival cloud provider. So, like Google, Amazon Web Services will stop those fees. Regulators and lawmakers had both been examining the practice. Elon Musk told his Tesla workers how to vote in the Texas primary election. He emailed Tesla workers asking them to vote for a new DA in Austin. He named the candidate he favored in an email to workers. Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
Now, back to more of the News Drive at 5 with your host, Patrick Reynolds, on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Welcome back to the News Drive at 5 here on this Super Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024. You are listening to WSIC News Talk Radio. I'm Patrick Reynolds taking you home for this News Drive at 5. 844-STUDIO-4. 844-788-3464. Get you on the air here on WSIC News Talk. Richard Coleman called in during the last segment. He is a candidate for an Iredell County Commissioner position, one of the 7 Republican candidates that are on the ballot today. So if anyone else out there wants to talk a little politics or the election, the numbers once again, 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464. In other News Drive at 5 headlines coming out of Cornelius. At last night's meeting, the Cornelius Town Board unanimously approved the application of $241,000 in asset forfeiture funds to assist the Cornelius Police Department. The breakdown of the funds that they will use, they will help the department in the operation of the K-9 police operations, new handguns with optics, ammunition, SWAT-related tools, breaching tools, and drug terminator programs. The Asset Forfeiture Fund program was established in 1984 by the federal government to provide assistance to local police. Also, from the town board meeting last night, the commissioners unanimously approved a rezoning to permit the construction of Royal Bliss Brewery on West Catawba Avenue. There were no comments against the project, and Royal Bliss officials hope to have their restaurant and brewery open sometime in 2025. In Statesville, City Manager Ron Smith announced that Fire Station 1 may be completed sooner than expected. He explained during Monday night's City Council meeting, quote, "I will not need to be giving updates on Fire Station 1 for much longer because we are looking to be finished with it a little ahead of schedule. The original completion date was in May, and we are anticipating being completed sometime in April." End quote. It's great news. Crews are working on finishing the interior, pouring exterior concrete, and putting the finishing touches on the city's latest fire station. Councilwoman Doris Allison has already toured the station and was very pleased with what she saw. Allison explained, quote, "It was very exciting to tour Fire Station 1. If you haven't seen it, you need to. I am grateful for all the hard work and determination that it took to get it done. Thank you for doing a good thing." End quote. The next projects slated for completion for the city include a new warehouse and garage building where grading and wall construction has already begun. And at the beginning of the meeting, Mayor Costi Cote presented the Statesville Fire Department with a plaque acknowledging the department's recent reaccreditation. The Statesville Fire Department is one of 9 departments in North Carolina to earn international accreditation and hold an ISO 1 rating. Fire Chief Glenn Curfees said, quote, "We are an excellent department that provides an excellent service, and that's all because of the men and women on the Statesville Fire Department, and I appreciate their support. We want to thank the mayor and city manager for going to Florida with us to receive this recognition. We were the only city to have both the mayor and city manager, and their support is much appreciated." End quote. In other Statesville business, the city council voted unanimously to annex property on Odessa Drive, which is the current building site of a speculative distribution building. Planning Director Sherry Ashley explained, quote, "This property is 98 plus acres and the building is already well underway. It will be a little over 234,000 square feet at completion," end quote. The property is contiguous to the Statesville city limits and is currently zoned light industrial. This is a voluntary annexation. The current tax value for the property is approximately $143,000. The council also voted to appoint Martin Gotham to the Airport Commission. Gotham will complete the term left by the departure of Dr. Robert Salzman from the commission. His term will end in June of 2026. The Mooresville Graded School District and the Mooresville Police Department have implemented additional measures aimed at enhancing safety and security within the community. The strategic partnership will add an additional K-9 team to the school district. Mooresville Graded School District officials and the Mooresville Police Department recognize the importance of fostering a secure and supportive learning environment. This K-9 team will be the second one to be deployed to schools within the district. By working alongside school resource officers, the K-9s provide an additional layer of security and deterrence. Key highlights of the ongoing collaboration include increased security presence. Specifically trained K-9 teams will be present in and around school premises, contributing to a visible and proactive security presence. Drug detection. The K-9 teams will continue to assist in detecting and deterring the presence of illegal substances within school grounds, contributing to a drug-free educational environment. Explosives and firearm detection. The K-9 teams will assist in detecting and deterring the presence of explosive and firearms within school grounds, contributing to a safer educational environment. And the community outreach programs. The collaborative extends beyond security measures to include educational initiatives. Officers and K-9 teams will promote positive interactions between law enforcement, K-9 teams, and students. Mooresville Graded School District Superintendent Jason Gardner stressed that safety and well-being of the students are the district's top priorities. He said, quote, "The collaboration with the Mooresville Police Department will enhance our overall security measures and contribute to creating a safe learning environment for everyone," end quote. In Huntersville, crews finished up the removal of debris along Interstate 77 North in Huntersville on Monday afternoon. The general purpose lanes were closed around 4 p.m. near the Hambright Road interchange. This caused backups onto I-485 Inter, stretching to the exit of West W.T. Harris Boulevard. According to the Huntersville Fire Department, gravel was likely spilled onto the roadway. The lanes were all back open yesterday. The Cool Springs Volunteer Fire Department conducted a live burn training over the weekend on a structure that was donated to the department for training purposes. Members of the department were able to train on different fire scenarios for several hours before the structure was deemed unsafe and burned down. These training exercises allowed firefighters to come as close to a structure fire in a semi-controlled environment and experience the heat and the negative visibility while finding the fires and extinguishing them. In Statesville, the Art and Soul series continues this week at the Iredell Arts Council with a reception and conversation with Sue Shoemaker, a visual artist with a love for many mediums who has found her home in watercolor. Shoemaker uses the beautiful medium to illustrate stories and poetry. In 2016, she published her first children's picture book. She is currently collaborating on 2 new works for children with her husband, Reverend Steve Shoemaker. The reception begins at 6 p.m. tomorrow. That's Wednesday, March the 6th, followed by the Art and Soul conversation with Shoemaker at 6:30 p.m. The conversation will explore her creative process as it relates to her spiritual journey. This all takes place at the Iredell Arts Council on South Meeting Street in Statesville. The town of Davidson is excited to announce the dates for the 4th annual Mayor's Fitness Challenge. The towns of Davidson, Cornelius, and Huntersville will once again participate in a 6-week-long fitness challenge taking place from April 7th to May 19th, with an official kickoff event taking place from 2 to 4 p.m. at the town of Davidson's Town Green. Online registration for the fitness challenge opens yesterday, March the 4th. This event is no cost to Davidson residents. Winner with the most minutes of fitness will be declared the fittest town of the 3. News Drive at 5 continues on here at WSIC News. Patrick Reynolds taking you home. We'll have more from Super Tuesday. We'll be back.
The News Drive at 5 will be back shortly on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC. Local starts here.
Forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. MuralFest is back, April 25th through the 28th at Wilkes Community College, featuring nearly 100 performers, including Old Crow Medicine Show, Sam Bush, Turnpike Troubadours, the Teskey Brothers, Nickel Creek, and more. Tickets and information at muralfest.org. Listen each morning to Good Morning LKN for your chance to win tickets. Coin collectors, get ready. The Statesville Coin and Currency Show is coming to the Statesville Civic Center March 16th and 17th, featuring over 60 tables of some of the finest coins around. For more info, contact Bill Brewer of Carolina Prospectors in Statesville. The Statesville Coin and Currency Show, Statesville Civic Center, March 16th and 17th. Eagle Rentals in Statesville is celebrating you and the wonderful community they serve. Come to Eagle Rentals Customer Appreciation Day, March 16th from noon until 4 p.m. Fun for the whole family. Kids and adults are welcome. Eagle Rentals Customer Appreciation Day, March 16th, 3435 East Broad Street in Statesville. Want to see a Tyrannosaurus Rex? How about a Triceratops? Dinosaur World Live is coming to Kane Center for the Arts, Friday, March 29th. That's not the only fun family adventure coming to the Kane Center for the Arts. Dinosaur World Live, Friday, March 29th. For tickets and to see the entire spring lineup, visit canearts.org. That's CAINarts.org. Have an event you would like to tell people about? Yard sales, estate sales, and everything in between? Visit WSICnews.com and click on events to submit your event today.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
Be a part of the conversation.
I listen on the way to work.
Have your say.
It's more than just opinions, it's facts.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
Call 844-STUDIO-4 now to join in the conversation on the News Drive at 5 with Patrick Reynolds on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
She is correct. 844-STUDIO-4 gets you online live in the studio here at WSIC News Talk. 844-788-3464. We'd love to hear from you. Patrick Reynolds taking you home on this Super Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024, 5:48 p.m. East Coast time. Got more of the day's headlines right here, right now. In Cornelius, registration for summer camps at the Kane Center for the Arts is open. Week-long programs which begin June 10th and end August the 9th include paint, beat making, rock band, animal art, and dance camp with the Charlotte Ballet. For more info as well as to register, visit canearts.org. Recapping our lead story tonight, today is Super Tuesday. Republicans and Democrats have nominating contests in 15 states, including right here in North Carolina. Polls are open tonight until 7:30 p.m. Voters here in North Carolina will decide a full slate of primaries, including contested races for governor U.S. House and other offices, not to mention the Democratic and Republican presidential nominations. President Joe Biden is the only candidate listed on the Democratic primary ballot, although voters have the option of selecting no preference in either contest. U.S. Representative Dean Phillips of Minnesota and self-help author Marianne Williamson had attempted to get on the ballot, but the State Board of Elections decided in January to finalize the candidate list provided to them by the state parties. Former President Donald Trump and former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley are the only active candidates on the Republican ballot. A voter had attempted to block Trump from appearing on the ballot, saying he was disqualified for his role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, but the election board dismissed the challenge in December. Also on Tuesday's ballots are contested primaries to replace term-limited Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, State Attorney General Josh Stein, former State Supreme Court Justice Mike Morgan, and 3 other candidates will compete on the Democratic ballot. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, State Treasurer Dale Folwell, and Attorney Bill Graham will compete for the Republican nomination. Stein has Cooper's backing, while Robinson won Trump's endorsement. Primaries are also being held for other statewide offices such as Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, and Treasurer, as well as for the State Senate and State House, the U.S. House, which also includes 5 districts where the incumbent is not seeking another term. Non-presidential races where no candidate receives a single vote over 30% of the total vote may go to a May 14th runoff if the second-place finisher requests it. The Associated Press will provide coverage for the Democratic and Republican presidential primaries as well as key state races. Biden is the only Democratic presidential candidate on the ballot, but he faces a no-preference ballot option. The Republican ballot options include Trump, Haley, no preference, and all the other former Republican candidates. Among the notable state races are the Democratic and Republican primaries for governor, lieutenant governor, and treasurer, the Republican primary for Secretary of State, the Democratic primary for Attorney General, as well as various primaries for U.S. House, State Senate, and State House. Registered party members may only vote in their own party's primary. Unaffiliated voters may vote in any primary. There are 116 pledged Democratic delegates at stake in North Carolina, and they're awarded according to the National Party's standard rules. 25 at-large delegates are allocated in proportion to the statewide vote, as are 15 PLEO delegates or party leaders and elected officials. The state's 14 congressional districts have a combined 76 delegates at stake, which are allocated in proportion to the vote results in each district. Candidates must receive at least 15% of the statewide vote to qualify for any statewide delegates and 15% of the vote in a congressional district to qualify for delegates in that particular district. Now, Republicans have 74 delegates at stake, 32 of which are statewide delegates awarded proportionately to candidates who receive more than 20% of the statewide vote. Each of the 14 congressional districts awards 3 delegates. If the leading candidate reaches 60% in a congressional district, or if only one candidate surpasses 20% of the vote, all 3 delegates go to the candidate with the most votes. If more than one candidate receives 20%, but no candidate surpasses 60% in a congressional district, the candidate with the most votes receives 2 delegates, while the runner-up receives 1. Trump won the 2016 North Carolina primary against a more competitive field than he faces this year. In that election, Trump edged out U.S. Senator Ted Cruz by about 3 percentage points. Cruz almost managed to take the state by winning the second and third most popular cities of Raleigh and Greensboro and the surrounding areas, as well as a handful of counties in western North Carolina. Although past primary results show that Haley appears to be a much different type of Republican primary voter than Cruz, her likeliest path to victory would resemble Cruz's performance. To pull off an upset, she would need to rack up big wins in Raleigh and Greensboro and improve on Cruz's performance by also winning in Charlotte, which is the most populous city in the state. Trump carried Charlotte in the 2016 primary, but it's the type of area where Haley has found some success this cycle. Biden has a 19-point victory over U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders in the 2020 primary, and the president is the only named candidate on the ballot in 2024. A winner call should be possible if the initial votes of the night confirm that he has an overwhelming lead over no preference. Non-presidential races with at least 4 candidates could go to a May 14th runoff if no one receives at least one vote more than 30% of the total vote and the second-place finisher requests a runoff. This could delay winner calls in those races. Runoff-eligible races in which the leading candidate hovers near the 30% mark may not be called until additional votes are counted, even if the front-runner leads the rest of the field by a significant margin. The AP will call winners in races in which a candidate has clearly received more than 30% of the vote. AP will declare a runoff in races in which no candidate reaches the threshold by advancing at least one of the candidates into the runoff election. The Associated Press does not make projections and will declare a winner only when it's determined there is no scenario that would allow the trailing candidate to close the gap. If a race has not been called, the AP will continue to cover any newsworthy developments, such as candidate concessions or declarations of victory. In doing so, the AP will make clear that it has not yet declared a winner and explain why. Turnout in the 2022 U.S. Senate primaries was about 9% of registered voters in the Democratic Party and about 11% in the Republican Party. As of last Wednesday, nearly 385,000 votes had been cast before Election Day, about 46% in the Democratic Party and about 53% in the Republican Party. In the 2022 U.S. Senate primaries, pre-Election Day voting made up about 50% of the total vote in the Democratic contest and about 37% for Republicans. In the 2022 primary election, the AP first reported results at 7:38 p.m. Eastern Time, or 8 minutes after polls closed. The election night tabulation ended at 12:52 a.m. Eastern Time, with about 99% of total votes counted. Results on Super Tuesday may be reported later than in previous elections because of a new state law requiring elections officials to wait until polls closed before tabulating pre-election day votes that were cast in person. As of Super Tuesday, there will be, get out your pens and papers, 132 days until the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, 167 days until the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and 245 days until the November general election. That is a lot of election material for you to digest, but that's what we got here on the News Drive at 5. That is the story of the day. Super Tuesday. We'll have lots to follow up with tomorrow. And speaking of following, we've got all your politics and news right here coming up next, as is every weeknight at 6 p.m. the Eastern Time. The Scoreboard with Joe Berg follows us. Joe, I see you climbing up to the mic there, getting stretched and warmed up. How you doing tonight?
Wonderful. It's a wonderful day, so you know you got to be in a good mood, right?
I'm in a great mood.
I'm in a great mood too.
I host a news show, and there's a big election today, so I couldn't be happier.
What more can you ask for?
I could ask. What more could I ask? The Scoreboard. That's what I could ask for. What's coming up tonight on the Scoreboard? What do you got for us?
Well, we had high school basketball games that are coming up tonight that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Baseball going on tonight as well. We're still going to talk about what happened over the weekend with the NASCAR and Formula One. College basketball, we are oh so close to conference tournaments. This is the last week of games, and the NHL trade deadline's coming up on Friday.
When you mention baseball, I'm okay with it now because I look over your shoulder and I see March on the display
and
when I read the date.
70 degrees outside.
It was a gorgeous day today. I'm feeling baseball. It's okay. I had a hard time when it was 20 degrees in February.
Nothing better than standing on a baseball field.
The boys of summer are back. And girls. Looking forward to it. Scoreboard coming up at the top of the hour. I am Patrick Reynolds. This has been the News Drive at 5. We will see you tomorrow. Good night.